One of your big taglines that's obviously huge in the comment section of every video you post, the whole clean your room, sort yourself out.
Yep.
Like, I think kind of in the vein of what we were discussing earlier, especially Kyle saying that, especially for young men, that's something that they haven't heard before. You know, it's like a realistic, you know, a lot of millennials their parents have tried to keep them in this, you know, box of cushy padded, you know, nonsense. And then you come in and say, no, the world has edges. It's dangerous. You need to, you know, bolster yourself against that. Because they are kind of a little bit vague topics, you know, clean your room, do that. And I know they're kind of meant to be. But what are some first steps you think?
Well, the first thing is that I don't believe that it's very dangerous to mess with systems that you don't understand. I mean, most people won't open their MacBook and like poke around in it. And it actually turns out that socio-political entities are more complex than the MacBook. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you mess with them at your peril. And one of the things you might think is, well, you don't know, you wouldn't take apart an Army helicopter. So what makes you think that you could run a nation by your utopian principles? Mm-hmm. I would say, but by the same token, the desire to improve the world, let's say, is a admirable desire, and it's characteristic of young people, and it's a good thing. So the question is, well, where should you channel that? And my sense is, well, you should start humbly, and I don't mean that in the goody-goody, naive, harmless sense that it's usually meant. I mean that you should start building yourself into the sort of person who can make intelligent and competent decisions that will make the world better. And you start by doing that locally. And you start by doing that by understanding that what you have right in front of you is already a tremendous amount. And the idea of cleaning up your room, I mean, it's become this really funny meme, I suppose, you know, and it shows up on T-shirts and all of these things. But I'm dead serious about it. It's like, it's not that easy to organize your room, to get it right, because you have to know in order to organize a room properly, the room you live in, you have to know what you're going to do with your life, because the room serves the purposes of your life. Mm-hmm. You need to know, well, what clothes are you going to wear and why? And what decisions are you going to make about those clothes? How are you going to present yourself in the world and why? And like, how are you going to organize your computational resources? And how are you going to organize your sleeping space? And when are you going to wake up in the morning? And what are you going to eat? And like, all these things are part of getting yourself together. Like, I think of the individual as a world-creating force, and I think that that's an idea that's integral to Christianity. That that whatever our soul is, let's say, whatever our logos nature is this incredible power that enables us to take hold of reality and reconstruct it. Human beings can do that, and we can reconstruct it according to our own vision. It's unbelievable. It's a miraculous power, and we all have it. And because we have that power, because reality is in many ways in our own hands, we should learn how to interact with it properly. And you have some reality right in front of you that you have dominion over. It's like, perfect it, man. Put it together. Make it beautiful. Make it functional. Get everything right. And then you'll learn something. And that also means at the same time getting yourself together. Like, stop doing stupid things, drinking yourself into a coma and chasing impulsive pleasure. Like, I don't have anything against that. Don't get me wrong. I don't expect people to be well-behaved and nice. I think that's contemptible. Like, it might not be as contemptible as being an antisocial criminal, but it's sort of like the goody two-shoes version of the same thing. Mm-hmm. I think that the man should be a monster. I really believe that the man should be a terrifying force, but that should be controlled. And the most admirable men I know are like that. It's, you don't mess with them. And it's not because they're going to take you in the alley and beat the hell out of you, although maybe they could, and maybe they might if you push them too far. But most of it's just the kind of power that's quiet, that resides inside of them because they've become disciplined and because they are forces of nature. And that's what I see as the proper destiny for young men. It's like, Jesus, get your act together. Christ, you've got the whole world at your fingertips, and you really do, because the individual is so powerful now. And so,
do you think you're
nothing
almost,
better to do.
Do you think you know in your own mind, where let's say that you did a good job cleaning your room up and getting your life on track? Do you think it's something that you kind of just intrinsically know, like a sensation in your head when you start to fall off that wagon, or be like, you know what, my room's getting dirty?
Well,
or,
it's happened to me over the last 8 months, you know, because things have got beyond me. And well, I was in the middle of a house renovation, and quite an extensive one, because we tore the roof off our house and put a third floor on, which is the room I was in when we were talking earlier. And I haven't had my room cleaned since October. I can't get on top of it. And it is emblematic of the situation in my life. Like I'm tearing it apart, restructuring and all of that. But for me, there's no distinction really between my surroundings and my psyche. You know, they're the same place. And it is symbolically appropriate that my room isn't clean at the moment. And I'm spending hours every day putting it back together. And
when you feel that your room is in order, is it more a feeling of just internal kind of satisfaction, or is it you're noticing, oh, productivity is up, I'm getting more stuff done?
Well, the thing is, you know, part of, like, I think of my house as a tool, or a set of tools, you know, and they're tools that I use to live, to what would you say, to engage with the world. And like, I have a tool shed out back. It's kind of beautiful. It's got stained glass windows, but the tools have to be where I can see them, because if something's in the house that I need to fix, I don't want to spend 15 minutes looking for the damn tool, because I have something I want to do with that 15 minutes. I don't have time to waste, you know, and that's because I don't believe that time should be wasted. And the reason I don't think time should be wasted is because there are things to contend with in the world. There's evil and suffering that need to be addressed and constrained. And those are noble goals. And I don't believe that a human being can live without a noble goal without becoming corrupt. And I think that people know this. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why what I've been saying on YouTube has become so popular. Is that because I'm suggesting to people, particularly young men, it's like, you're the child of heroes. Get the hell up and get moving.
And the child of horrible villains.
Hey, the same thing.
Who were heroic in their villainy.
There's some utility and monstrosity, man.
There's so many people who I don't think can think big enough to understand that like, your genetic line didn't just crop out of nowhere in the last 100 years. Like all of us, every single one of us has this ancestry that goes back to some of the most badass creatures that ever walked on two legs. These warlords and powerful men and ruthless conquerors that have been lost to time. You know, forget about Genghis Khan, who came 1,000 years before him and got every caveman tribe together and conquered everything. Like, we're a product of all of that.
Yeah, well, every single one of your forefathers reproduced successfully in an unbroken line stretching back 3.5 billion years. Do you know how unlikely that is? The odds of that are infinitesimal. And here you are. You know, and there's great things to be done. I'm tired of this world-weary, nihilistic pessimism that's descended over the West, and this guilt about our own existence. It's like, yeah, we have our problems, and we're a little rough on the planet, let's say. But it's no bloody wonder, because the planet's a little rough on us. And that's no excuse, but it's a reason. It's like, it's only been 50 years since we've had enough self-awareness to even understand that we were starting to have an effect on the planet. 50 years. That's nothing. Jesus, that's within my lifetime. You know, so I'm not going to go to the humans are a cancer on the face of the planet end of the ideological spectrum. I like people.
Yeah, I believe in global warming, certainly so. But it might have been you who said it before. It's certainly better than global cooling, and it seems like the worst case scenario is increased weather events, and we move our cities a little further away from the coast, right?
Well, the thing is, you know, what's going to happen in the next 100 years is that the population is going to peak out at 9 billion. And then in all likelihood, it's going to collapse precipitously. And so 9 billion, that's about 2 billion more than there are now. It's coming, it's right around the corner. You know, and it could easily be that in 100 years, the biggest problem that human beings have is that there aren't enough of us. You know, and cities will start to shrink. And, you know, that causes a lot of economic disruption when cities start to shrink, because the real estate values fall very rapidly towards zero. So we're not going to overpopulate the planet and exhaust all the resources. We might do in a lot of the big mammals. That's happening. And I do think that what we've done to the oceans, and I've done a lot of reading on oceanic mismanagement because I worked for a UN panel on economic development and sustainability for a couple of years. What we've done to the oceans is absolutely criminal. But a lot of it's ignorance, you know, and an economic miscalculation and the tragedy of the commons. There's lots of reasons contributing to it. But I'm very, very tired of this anti-human doctrine that's taken a hold, especially of the Western world, where we're guilty, reprehensible, world-destroying creatures. It's like, yeah, true, all of that's true. But what about the other side of it, man? There's something about human beings. I mean, we stand up under the weight of our own self-conscious tragedy and move forward. And there's something that's divine about that. The ability of human beings to even work, to even go to work. You know, there's so many people out there that are suffering from some catastrophic illness, personal illness, or in their family. You know, they're bearing up under a tremendous load, and they're still going out there and doing their goddamn duty and trying to make the world function. And it'd be nice to have a little respect for that, a little admiration for it.
Yeah, it's not like humans got where we are because that fork in the road came and chimpanzees were like, oh, no, after you guys take the world, you build and create and everything. It's like, no, we were the only ones that could do it. We're the only species that's able to make vending machines and cars and those things that help you walk faster at the airport and all the rest of the things we make. Like it's not.
You really hit the big three right there.
I hit the big three. Bubble tea, stamps, you know, like all. But like, you're right. There is a lot of human guilt out there, thinking like, oh, who am I to do this? And it's like everything you do as a human is bad for the environment. Like how many fucking squirrels could live in your apartment if they needed room? Like the best thing you could really do for the environment, if you really cared, is probably kill yourself because humans are horrible on the environment. But
and
obviously
let yourself
you don't want people to
decompose
kill themselves.
properly.
Yes, well, that's the most honorable solution to the overpopulation problem. It's like there are too many damn people on the planet. It's like, well, I can think of a place to start to fix that, and it's in your own hands, man, if you're really concerned about it.
But then I hear what you said there, where you say that you're an unbroken line of like billion of years. And then that makes the prospect of like, maybe I don't want kids seem silly because it's like, well, everybody else did. And it's clearly a part of life that people get a lot of fulfillment out of.
Everybody else who needed a team of people to till the earth. Everybody else who needed to overcome the fact that like most of their kids were going to die anyway. Like they needed helpers. They needed those helpers ASAP because by the time they hit 50 or 55, the arthritis is kicked in, their backs are going from bending over in that field, and they're going to need at least 2 or 3 of those young men to like help daddy into his evening. I'm not necessarily
saying like having a lot of kids. I'm just saying like choosing to have children instead of choosing no children. You know, like you'd want to keep this billion-year streak alive, right?
Well, and what else are you going to do exactly? Like one of the things that's also kind of appalling about the way that Western people operate is that our time horizon is so damn short. Like most young people live like that they're not going to live past 40. You know, and like I'm 55 now, and my daughter's going to have a baby in the next 2 weeks, I believe, and my son and his fiance are planning the same sort of thing for not too long in the future. And like and I've had a great career. Like my career has been everything I could have possibly hoped for a career. It's been so interesting that I could barely stand it, you know. And I've run a business reasonably successfully, and I have a clinical psychology practice, and I've done lots of consulting, and I'm a professor, and I have a big clinical practice, and I've written books, and it's like, you know, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that to indicate the wealth of opportunities that have been placed before me, you know, and still. With all that, as you get older, what you have your wife, you have your kids, you have your grandkids, you have your family. It's like it's very, very difficult for anything to take precedence over that. And it's necessary to know that. And and the other thing I don't like about our culture is that kids get a bad rap. You know, people act like having kids is a burden. It's like, I love kids, man. Kids are so much fun. When I had little kids, I stopped seeing anyone, really, because it was so much fun to hang out with my kids. They were absolutely enthusiastic about whatever we did. Like they were just on fire looking at everything, which is really fun to be around. They love you. ridiculously, you know, and you have a chance to guide them, and it's wonderful. It's wonderful. I loved it, and I'm really looking forward to having.
Do you know what I want to do instead of that? I watched a documentary the other night about these African guys who were being moved to Boston. They barely spoke. It was called the Lost Boys. They were from Uganda, I believe. The man told his story of escape in a TED Talk, like in modern days, because this documentary I'm referring to is from the 80s. And there's a part where they're literally running from the government, swimming across a crocodile-infested body of water. He's like, some of the boys the crocodiles ate, some of us made it here. And it's like every step of the way through this man's story, it's like, yeah, the crocodiles ate my friends, and then there was starvation, and there was rape, and there was disease. And this documentary follows this maybe group of 4 or 5 Ugandan guys, are about 18 years old, who are just dropped into Boston, given an apartment, and they have this man who's trying to like get them up to speed, and he's trying to explain to the camera what it's like. He's like, you know, my 5-year-old asks me what makes the plane fly, and I say lift and drag. And it doesn't matter that she doesn't understand those things. We just don't have enough time right now to go over them, so we try to keep it simple with her. I'm at about a 5-year-old level with these gentlemen. He's like, and the trash goes in the trash can, not out the window. He's teaching them how to use potato chips and all that stuff. And I was watching it really envious of his position because these guys had such excitement and wonder and hunger to like learn these cultural tools to live their lives. And I feel like maybe I would have taught them things that were more relevant than others. Like I don't know. That looked like that would be really promising work to do.
Well, one of the things that's really delightful about having children is that's so cool that, and you don't get this. Like, okay, so the first thing is that as soon as you have a baby, you understand that you now have a relationship with someone that's just as important as any relationship you've ever had with anyone ever.
As soon as you have a baby?
Well, with a woman, for sure. With a guy, it takes like, you know, it takes a little while. Well, you know that. It takes a little while for that to really kick in.
Most guys lie about that.
Yeah. But I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, there's things like an ungainly football when you first get it. It's like, what the hell do I do with this?
And it's boring. It's just like luggage you have to carry everywhere that leaks. It sucks.
With men, you know, most men aren't that wired for infants, you know. So it takes a while to develop that relationship. But I'm using a shorthand essentially. But the other thing that's cool about that relationship is that you have the opportunity to keep it relatively pristine because that child actually loves you, and you can maintain that if you're careful, if you use truth and you're careful and fortunate as well. And so you can foster those relationships so that they are the most important thing that you have in your life. And that's a wonderful opportunity. And children are extremely amusing. They're very, very comical. They have great senses of humor. They're really playful. So